The first thing we should do is go to the first floor plan so that we can create a wall section. Go to the View tab and we'll pick Section and just draw here a wall section through this wall here it's then looking towards the right here. And now we can double click on this section head so that we have this new view called a section 2. You can always rename these as building section and wall section. And because we're building a foundation, we'll need to change this crop region so that it can come down a little bit further. So in our drawing earlier, we drew this floor that kind of lines up with the inside face of the wall. That's great for presentation purposes, but when we're working with a foundation or a wall section, the 2x10 joist comes all the way over and ties into this rim joist that goes around the perimeter of the building. And this would be different for commercial, but it sits on this mud sill, which is the 2x6. That's the transition between the joist and the foundation. So in understanding all of that, in order for us to draw the wall section, we'll need to bring this floor over to line up with this wall, and then we'll bring in the 2x component after we've established the extent of this floor and the walls. So let's go back to the first floor plan and use the tab key to tab through the different elements until you can click on the floor itself and then pick edit boundary. And so now we can just hold our left mouse button down and drag our mouse up until it kind of snaps into place here on the outside wall, so that we have that floor that's extending underneath. Now this isn't always the case. Like I said, in commercial drawings you have a whole other wall system, but in this smaller example we are extending the floor to go underneath the stud wall construction. So we'll go ahead and pick the green check mark and then double click back on this section here or over here in section 2, either way, to get back and see that we did here change the extent of that floor. Also, if you select the floor, you'll see that we use the generic 12-inch, so we can swap that out here for a wood joist 10-inch with the wood finish. We can use that one if we like. And we won't be able to see the inside of this, the components of it, until at the bottom left side we change our detail level from coarse to fine, and we can start to see it. But even more, we can see it if we turn off these thick lines. So we changed our detail level to fine, but we still need to go to the View tab and pick Thin Lines. And by picking thin lines, we can at least be able to turn on and off here those bold lines that we can clean up later on. So you need to take a look at the structure and make choices on whether you're going to edit the style of the floor or use a different one. So what we really want here is a 10-inch structure that this wall can sit on. What this style has is that additional 3/4 inch oak flooring, or there's another style that has a finish that's carpet, but it wouldn't be underneath this wall. So I'm going to cancel this, and what we can do is go back and swap it out for a generic 12-inch, but then pick edit type and duplicate it so that you have another one in your library of floors. Let's make a generic 10-inch, and by making it a generic 10-inch we can know that that one will be for our 9 1/4 2x10 and our subfloor that's 3 1/4. So we'll pick OK and then go into edit this thickness so that it is 10 inches. We'll pick OK, and that's our new generic 10-inch, and we can pick OK, and now Now it's more in line with what the structure would use. The text is a little big, which reminds us that wall sections are normally not an 1/8 inch in scale. They're usually 1/2 inch or a 3/4 inch. So at the bottom left corner, we'll change the scale from an 1/8 inch to a 1/2 inch, and you'll see right away that the text is more appropriate for that. And so now we're ready to create levels. In the Architecture tab, go to Level, and then what we want to do is create one that comes down 1 foot to establish the top of our footing here, and then another one that comes down to here 8 feet below that top of footing. So we'll go 8 foot here more. And one more that we should create is the basement floor that we can work off of. And we can make that one 4 inches here as another level. And it depends on your wall section. It could be different for commercial drawing. So we can rename this level 4 top of or TO foundation wall. And it's asking if we want to make the level over here in the browser the same. So go ahead and pick yes. And then this one here, level 6, or it could be different on yours, is going to be, basement slab or floor. And this bottom one, which is overlapping the other one, so you can click right on here, this line, and if you look close enough, there's this small little break line you can click on that will give you the flexibility of changing these blue grips to modify the graphics. And let's change this one to bottom of foundation wall. We can change this even more. Now we can go to the basement floor in the project browser, and you might see a few elements here. You can select those elements, right click and hide in view the element. And we might want to keep these sections since they do go through the entire structure. And in the properties under underlay, we want to be able to see the floor plan. So we can change the underlay to first floor plan. And if we pick apply, we'll be able to see here in the basement plan the first floor plan so that we can start to work with it a little bit. We can also type in WT to window tile and see all of the different views that you've opened. You can close some of these views so that the only 2 views that you have open are the section and the basement floor plan. So WT will help you to window tile, or you can go to the View tab and use this Windows panel to tile the windows. So now we're ready to go to the Architecture tab and click on here the Wall tool that we've been using, and you'll notice in this drop down of walls we do have the foundation 12 inch. If we pick the foundation 12 inch, it's not exactly what we need we need a 10-inch foundation. So as you're building your library, you can pick Edit Type and pick Duplicate, and then change this foundation to a foundation 10-inch as the name and pick OK. And then pick the Edit button under Structure and change the thickness here to 10-inch. So as you're working with your projects, you're creating and building your library. I'll go ahead and pick OK. And so now we've established our wall foundation as being 10-inch. And now we're in the basement floor level, which would be this one here. So we need to think about how far up we want to go and how far down we need to go from that level. So the top offset from the basement floor will be 7'8", and the bottom offset from that basement floor will be a negative 4-inch, so that you can think about the basement floor, the top of the basement floor, and the relationship to the top of the foundation wall. The height is 8 feet because from the basement floor, we're going up 7'8" and we're going down that slab thickness of 4 inches. So now we're ready to start to draw our basement foundation wall. And with the check mark in chain, and we want to change here our location line to the core exterior. If we change our location line to the core exterior, as we're clicking here in our plan, we can see the blue line that shows us that it's going to line up with that outside wall. We want to go in a clockwise here rotation so that when we're clicking on the outside here wall. And you should see already, here it is, in your wall section, that foundation wall. Now I've got brick on the outside. I swapped that wall out so I can kind of pull that back, shorten it a little bit for that exterior wall. But as far as our wall section goes, we're starting to build it, and there is our foundation wall. Let's go to the Structure tab and pick here Slab for our floor slab. And once again, when we pick here in our floor plan the slab icon, we can see that the default is only a 6-inch slab, but that would work for more of a commercial project. But in this case, we're going to pick Edit Type and duplicate this, making it a 4-inch slab. Change the name to 4-inch slab, foundation slab, and pick OK, and then pick Edit and change the thickness here to 4. And now I can pick OK, and I'm ready to create it just like I did my other floors. So one way is to create a rectangle. If I create a rectangle, I'll know that I can get to the inside corners of that foundation wall. So I'm going to click here, the inside corner of the foundation wall, and here, pick the green check mark, and you should see your slab in place in your section because you're looking at both views. It's asking if you want them to be connected, and we don't. It won't let us anyway, so just go ahead and pick no. And there is our floor slab coming right up into our foundation wall. If we go to, in the Structure tab in the Foundation panel, this wall, they're calling it a wall, but it's really a footing, the structural foundation wall, then once again, the default is 36 by 12. That's pretty big for us, so you could go in and duplicate that. I'll just go ahead and place it. And with this option, you're actually selecting the wall. and it automatically creates the footing for you underneath it. So you can see that I already selected that wall. I can select the rest of them. It's giving me a warning, but most of the time we can ignore the warning. It's just saying that it's not visible in the floor plan, which is fine. We don't want it to be visible in the floor plan. We want it to be in our section here. So I'll just go ahead and close that. So I'm going to show you some of the tools that we can use to finish up this section. And one thing we need to do is to cut back the dirt. We created a building pad in the second assignment, so we don't want to have one here. And even in the second assignment, we created one for presentation purposes and just brought it down to a different level. So here in this project, in the basement plan, you can go to the Massing and Site tab and pick Building Pad, and then use these draw tools to draw a rectangle around the outside wall so that we can cut the ground back to the exterior of our foundation wall. And then we'll change in the properties the height offset from the first floor to 8 foot, a negative 8 foot 8 inches. A negative 8 foot 8 inches will bring us down to the bottom of our floor slab for the basement. So once you do that and you pick the green check mark, then you'll see that the ground is cut back and away from your basement plan. And then in the Annotate tab, you'll see that there's a panel called Detail. And this is where you can get the detail lines to start to draw different lines for the section, and the components. So let's go ahead and load some of these components. They have here as default everything from the anchor bolt and the 2x construction to reinforcing bars and all of those type of details that we might need in a wall section. So here we can go to, in the Annotate tab, component and detail component, although there are also repeating detail components for something like masonry block that repeats itself. Let's go ahead and pick detail component, and then if you pick load family, you can double click on detail items. Detail items folder has all of the specification divisions that you can use here. So we need to look for the division 6 under wood and plastics, and then wood framing. And under wood framing, you have the nominal and the rough cut lumber. We'll use the nominal section here, and when you double click on it, you'll see that there are several sizes that you can load. We don't need all of these, so the ones that I loaded were the 2x10 and the 2x6. You can hold your control key down if you'd like to select those, and once you load them, you'll be able to then find them in this drop down. I originally had a 2x4, and then I found out that I had to swap out the wall. That's another thing too. So there's my 2x construction. I think I'll go ahead and pick the 2x10 to show you that you can press the space bar to rotate it if you need to place it by using a different snap. So you can snap that here into place. You may have to use the move tool to move it a little bit closer to where it needs to go. And the closer you're zoomed up here, the more control you'll have to snap that into place. So I did have to select here this exterior wall and swap it out for a different one. The one that I had was the 12-inch, I believe. Or, no, the one that I had was an 8-inch. So for this example, I went ahead and used a generic 6. And by swapping it out for a generic 6, we can use the 2x6 nominal. We can use the 2x6 stud because if you look at and you edit the type, it's width of 1.5 and the depth of 5.5, which is the actual size of the wood itself. And then that way you can use these detail lines here, detail line under detail. I'm going to let you go ahead and draw these components, the detail lines. Once you pick detail line in the detail panel here in the annotate tab, you can look at the far right side and change what type of line style it is. So it's by default the thin lines, and that's something that can be customized also. So you might here draw a couple of thin lines that come from that stud wall construction when you start to build it. So I put a 2x6 here and here for my mud sill and my bottom plate of my wall construction, and a 2x10 for this rim board that goes around the perimeter. And I drew a line in here to represent the subfloor, that plywood sheathing that's at the top of the joist. We can also add insulation. Here's the detail panel again. There's insulation here. And once you select it, you can change the width. 3.5 is a little small, so maybe I'll try 5-inch. Make sure that you type in 5-inch instead of just 5, or else we get 5 feet. And then I'll just click here at the midpoint, and you have here that that insulation. And so now it's starting to look like a section as you start to bring in those different elements. And if we go back to, we can leave it like this, or we can go back to the View tab and turn on here the thin lines. Remember, we turned off those thick, thick or wider lines. And by doing that, as a choice, you can start to change some of this line weight. And I'm showing you this as a tool so that you can have the choice of using it yourself. If you go to the Modify tab, you'll see under View, there's this line work icon, LW for line work. When you select that line work icon, you have the choice here of changing the line style. And so if we wanted to pick thin line and then select this line and make it thin, see how it makes those lines thin? So you can start to work with that a little bit here, depending on what you want to highlight. When you have a family like this that is bold and you want the detail line to change, when you select it, you really don't want to have to edit the family. So right next to line work, there's a little paintbrush icon, and it's overriding the graphics in this view, you can pick override by element or category. So by element, you have the projection lines, and if I change this weight, 1 being the thin line and 7 or 8 being a lot bolder, I'll change it to 1, and if I pick apply, you see how it kind of takes away the line weight of that specific element. I'm going to go ahead and pick OK to leave it like that. So for your project, you can go back, if you'd like, to the View tab and turn off the thin lines so that you have this wall section in place. Also, the crop region itself, if you select it, you can keep it the way it is if you'd like, or you can click on these little break lines, and what happens is it kind of breaks the region so that you can create several pieces of this wall section with variation here with this break, so you don't have to show the whole wall section. Okay, then we can highlight sheets and right click and pick new sheets in the project browser. As we said before, you can load different size sheets, but we'll use this default 30 by 42, and then highlight your section 2, or maybe you renamed it wall section. Let's go ahead and rename our section by right clicking on it here, wall section, because we have a building section and we have a wall section. And then in the sheet, we can go back to it by clicking in the project browser. We can hold our left mouse button down on the wall section and drag and drop it into our sheet. When it prints, these boxes won't print, so you'll have your wall section on your drawing. If you go to one of your elevations and you want to change your foundations to hidden lines, you can use the line work tool. I notice here there's the building pad that I might want to turn off in my elevation, so I can highlight it, right click, and hide and view that element right here. Another one, hide and view. And I wanted to show you here that you can use line work in the modify tab to change this line style to hidden lines, and then start selecting here the different elements of the foundation so that you can have that hidden line that represents the foundation wall.